Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Canadian Rogue, and welcome to Niteburn. Welcome to Niteburn is a podcast covering the odd and obscure items found throughout the world, or even in the internet at large. This show features David Nemo Williams, Max Maria, I believe it's Max Maria, our Agent 86. As well as your classic button pusher, the Canadian Rogue, myself, Robin Kumitz. Today's show has a special guest, Johanna Ratz, a man who is focused on an unusual idea, and we're going to go deep into it, and hopefully we'll get to know more. Thank you again for coming along, and I hope you enjoyed this perilous journey. And without further ado, let's get in and see what these people are doing. Alrighty. Welcome to Niteburn. This is where we can have a good sit down, relax, and have a discussion over a few different unusual topics. And Max decided to bring you for whatever reason. So just to make sure that we have people on the same page in that, can we just kind of give it a low level, say 6-year-old type information and a nice tight package as best we can of what you cover for the most part?
Yeah. Who you are, what do you do, and what are you here for?
I'll definitely try that.
Yes.
We're here.
Go ahead. Yep. We've got it.
All right, excellent. So I'm ready to go anytime then.
Yep. No, we're live. We're ready, and we're gonna just have Johan introduce himself.
Why don't I give a little introduction?
Yeah. You go ahead, Max. You're the yeah. He's the driver's seat. Go ahead.
I'll give a brief intro, and then Dr. Rotz, you can talk. I guess we could call them friends or each other friends. I've been following Dr. Johann Rotz's work for a few years, hanging out in his idealism group. We have a lot of the same friends now because I like hanging out with physics nerds, and he's got some cool mad scientist physics friends. Johann is a Christian, although quite a few of the quantum idealists are not, or they have friction over it, or you might even say the quantum idealists have a different types of Christianity if they're Christians. But let me give you the idea of quantum idealism in a nutshell, as a layman should understood it. And then Dr. Rotz, who has his physics from the University of California, his physics PhD from the University of
California, and then I had a philosophy degree out in by California.
There you go. And the basic idea of this is in contemporary physics, you've all probably heard of the digital universe theory. That is, now there's various names and there's various competing things on it. The bottom line is that this is an idea that's live in current physics. It's currently respectable physics. This is not, not just wild-haired, let's go read. I don't want to make fun of anybody in particular, but like Deepak Chopra or whatever. But no. This is real physicists doing real work. That will tell you that the evidence is overwhelming, that physical reality is not actually physically there. That essentially it's very much like they're not saying that we are literally in a video game. In fact, if you say we're literally in a video game, you're wrong. There's all kinds of things that say no. It's not like we're all strapped in a room somewhere and wired in. It's not impossible. That's more or less. Yeah. It's not. That's not really what anybody believes that. That basically all reality, though, is operating very much like you're in Grand Theft Auto or Minecraft or one of those. That basically until when you're not looking at it or when it's not being observed by anybody, it's basically stored and not really there. And it only comes out and is brought out for you when you look or taste it or touch it or whatever. That physical reality is very, very, very much like a video game this way. And this is not a woo-woo idea, believe it or not. This is a live idea. This is live physics. This is stuff they're studying in universities. Johan's got, including experimental data. Johan, this came up because there's a blog I found that referenced. I noticed both Dr. Rotz's recent video, which we've linked in the Niteburn, and which hopefully TC will get up on BitChute and those. We got links to his latest video, a book called Quantum Hermetica, which I've read and which others in his quantum idealist group tend to like. The book is controversial. And so, Johanna, go ahead and take it from there, brother.
Around a couple of years ago on.
Sorry, Johan, can you just get a little bit closer to the mic? It's a little bit rusty.
Let's see here. Is it better?
That's better. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So I saw it a couple of years ago, about 2018, being passed around on the Idealism and Science versus Atheism board, and I looked a little bit at it, but I got a PDF from it somewhere, but I didn't really look at it until recently. And well, what was interesting is they linked. There's a blog linking stuff in my recent video to passages in the book.
Okay.
And I found this very interesting because, well, maybe it's a good idea to talk about the video first, because then you'll understand how it gets into the book, right?
Yes. And
Okay,
to be clear here, I think we've all watched the video, so I'm probably the least educated here about it, so I'm going to ask some follow-up questions as we go through this show. But I have watched the video, and I have watched some of your debates between other people, so I have a basic understanding of what the thing's about.
So,
go ahead.
for people in the audience who haven't seen this, essentially, I go through kind of a crash course on the digital physics thing. And actually, we'll get to the first chapter. I'll put the first chapter farther ahead for a second. I split into like 5 chapters, the video, right? We'll get to the first chapter ahead so we understand the framework in which this is being put in. The first chapter is about, or not the second chapter rather, is about kind of the digital universe. And then it ties into a field called quantum cognition, okay? Now, quantum cognition is very interesting because what they're discovering is that the behavior of your thoughts behaves very much in a manner akin to quantum superpositioning.
Mm-hmm.
When they first discovered this, they found, let me give you an example. What's your favorite ice cream?
We'll just say butterscotch.
What is your second favorite ice cream?
Vanilla, traditional.
Okay, so you go to the freezer door and you open, and there's butterscotch and vanilla in there, correct?
Yep.
But usually you would not, if you were like a robot, you just automatically compute the right value, the right, what you want, butterscotch or vanilla, and you just pull it out of the freezer, and that would be the end of it, right? You close the door.
Yeah.
It would all happen in a split second, right?
Yeah.
But when you go to the freezer door, you don't actually do that, do you?
No.
You waffle between them for a bit, right? I want vanilla, I want butterscotch, but I want both, maybe, and you don't actually make a decision until a couple seconds later, and then you pick only one or the other, and you close the door, correct?
Correct. But as we were mentioning, a computer could probably, if it had a little bit of information, just know what we're going to pick before we pick it pretty well.
Yeah, it could do that. But the point is what I'm looking at is that the manner in which your brain is operating seems to be different than the manner in which digital computer operates.
Does. Yes.
Yes, and it's kind of funny because it has this waffling behavior, right?
Yeah.
And then the waffling behavior just terminates, and then you pick one or the other, right? Now,
correct.
Do you know of any other phenomenon in science that sounds like that?
No, I don't. And the interesting thing I'll add with this is our brain does waffle on, even though we kind of know what decision we're going to make, especially with important ones. Like, we know which one's the right decision, we just don't. Our brain has a barrier to get there for some reason.
Right. Okay, now, what's interesting, and you'll see exactly what this is connected to in a moment. This started out when they were looking at stock market behavior, and they discovered that you could predict stock market behavior with the Schrödinger equation. Yeah. Which is weird because one's quantum mechanics, one's economics. What do they possibly have to do with each other, right? Bizarre, right?
Yeah. No, it's definitely. I saw this in the video, and I thought to myself, "You're right," but at the same time, I'm wondering how, because, like, you're right. It's quantum and math and economics. Really, just mathematics, and mathematics to a level can get to quantum pretty easily. So it's not too big of a stretch.
Why that math rather than, say, some other math, right?
Well, it's the most financially viable. Who makes more money? Like, a lot of money is made in the stock market. And if you can find a way to make even more money in the stock market by having basically perfect... Yeah.
Right, but what I'm saying is the stock market, when you do economics, economics is a kind of a science, a more derived science, but it is a science, much like chemistry or so on. And so it's very curious. It obeys its own laws. What's very curious, though, is that the laws that economics behave, it happens to fit that particular equation rather than any of the number of wide variety of equations it could fit, right?
That's fair.
It's curious, right? So
Yeah.
they looked at that and they said, well, what is the stock market fundamentally? It's individual people making individual choices, right, to buy or sell.
Mm-hmm.
And then the light clicked and thought, oh, wait a minute, this isn't a stock. It is a stock market thing, but it's not only a stock market thing. It's a psychology thing. This is how human decision making with fuzzy logic and so on behaves, right?
Correct.
And so they did studies on this, on people's fuzzy logic, decision making, and they found that also obeys the Schrödinger equation. And then it was very curious because it looks like it's quantum mechanical. Okay. They then took this a little bit further because everyone says the brain's too warm and wet and so on, right? Did it have actual quantum activity in it? Well, there's a guy named Matthew Fisher he had proposed an experiment on rats, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, let's give rats two different lithium isotopes, lithium-6 and lithium-7, okay? Now, as you know, it's the same element, and it's the same number of electrons, and so therefore it should have the same
effect. Yeah. However...
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you...
I was afraid that I suddenly had cut out somehow.
No. There was a little bit of weirdness, but we can hear pretty much everything you're saying.
Okay,
go ahead.
Good. So they should behave chemically identically, and so therefore, as you know, lithium is a psychoactive drug. They use it to treat depression and so on, right? Someone has you take lithium, and so it affects the rat's behavior. And so they figured, well, these two isotopes should not change anything because even though they're different number of neutrons, they have the same chemical properties. There really shouldn't be any difference between the two, right?
Yeah.
But he actually discovered then that not only had this, he was going to do the experiment until he discovered that the experiment had already actually been done back in 1985.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it was just kind of a side thing in the paper. No one really commented on how curious it was. They just reported the experiment, and no one even thought about it until later on.
Everyone went on with their lives, basically.
Yeah. And then he goes back and looks at it like, whoa, wait a minute, this is crazy. Because it's the same experiment he proposed. But it turns out that the rats that had lithium-6 were far more active than the rats that had lithium-7. They, in terms of maternal instincts, like one called them helicopter rats. They were, circling around the pups, trying to retrieve the pups whenever things are off. Then the ones with lithium-7 would not do this, and they had the lithium-6 the 6 rats were building nests like crazy. The lithium-7 rats wouldn't do that, and they were very the whole chart these big, massive differences between the two, right?
Yep.
Now he then realizes, wait a minute here. He looks at the entanglement time. All the chemical properties are the same, so there's a big mystery. Then he looks at the spin entanglement time, right? And discovers, it was for lithium-6, that the spin time was something like 5 minutes, or the entanglement time was 5 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. And that is in a room temperature, warm, wet brain environment. Which, if you think about, that's extraordinary. So he then is proposing now, based on this, that he thinks that it's called the Posner molecule. It has a phosphate compound in your. So you can keep the entanglement for several hours, believe it or not, in that environment. That is what's basically facilitating quantum computation of the brain. So we have this very interesting situation, and this actually, look at it from a philosophy of mind perspective, it makes sense because consciousness is irreducible, right?
Well, I don't know if that's the word I would use, but it's pretty close enough, Yeah,
okay. And so quantum mechanics it's fundamental, right? So it helps these hard problem issues if you put it down at the problem, at the base. And for the longest time, it was this warm, wet brain issue and the lack of direct evidence. But now we apparently have direct evidence with the lithium study, and discovering that there's these little spin states that are either not being affected by the chemistry or by the surrounding environment. They're kind of shielded inside the atom.
Yeah.
And so because of that, they're able to just hold these states in the brain for sometimes very long periods of time.
Okay.
molecule could last like a couple days or something like that.
Now, I guess the question I would have to say, and maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but how does this relate to the universe necessarily being of a mind, if you will?
Well, so specifically, when you go back to the digital physics stuff, right? What you discover is there is a space-time emerges from quantum entanglement. Okay.
Yep.
And you see this with Sean Carroll's research. There's the ER equals EPR correspondence and so on, right?
Go ahead.
Entanglement equals wormholes, basically. You have a holographic principle where the two-dimensional quantum field equals a three-dimensional.
Yeah.
You have an entangled black hole horizon, which is two-dimensional, and you have two of them, and now you suddenly have a three-dimensional wormhole.
Yep.
Well, what's a wormhole? It simply is, you have 2 points in distant space that are now suddenly the same point, and they're the same point because you have this hole poked in space and a link between them.
Correct.
Okay, if you're a fan.
In theory, at least.
Yeah, in theory.
Because we don't know wormholes exist or how wormholes work, but in theory, I agree.
So from that,
that makes sense.
Space itself is defined by locations, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if there were no locations, you remember middle school geometry, you start with a point, add another point on, and you draw it, and there's a line. Well, in quantum gravity, it's the same way. Space is constructed the same way. If there's no points, there's no locations. What does it even mean to talk about space, right? So,
well, sorry, I'm going to interrupt just for 1 second. Alchemist, are you there?
Yep. What's up?
I thought I might, because you're a little bit more educated on maybe asking probing questions here. Is there anything here that you'd like to ask that could maybe move this forward or challenge anything that he said so far or whatever? So is there anything you'd like to add here?
It cut out for about 30 seconds. Can you run by me what was said just now?
okay. So basically, space, the whole concept of space dissolves. There's no such thing as locations, right? So in middle school, you were asked to make a space. You have you start with a point that's a zero-dimensional space, and you have a second point, and you draw a line. Now you have one-dimensional space, and so on, right? And this is without locations or points, it doesn't mean anything to talk about space, right? And this is how space is also defined in physics. And so they're noticing with this whole ER equals EPR thing that if you have 2 points in space, right, you're one over there, and they're the same point because it's a wormhole. Well, those points are what define space. In this case, the space-time metric of a wormhole. And so, in that wormhole in turn is determined by entanglement. So, the more general lesson, other than entanglement equals wormholes, was that space-time itself is defined by these quantum mechanical states because they're twin locations that define space.
Yeah. So, what do you think about that, Alchemist?
I'm just trying to figure out where, regardless of the science behind it, where do you derive God from that?
Where we're going with this, and actually I was going to go to God, but I was going to go to something actually even more interesting than that in the show, which was the surprise.
Wait a minute though. Before you bring up the word God, everybody seems to trigger this because people indoctrinated in modernist backward-ass thinking, especially if they've been hanging out in the atheist forums, like to say which God and want you to get into a ridiculous argument over which particular idea of God or which religion is right first. No, that's backwards thinking. Most of us who conclude that there's a God start thinking there's a God first, then ask which religion might have more information. The idea of God is understood philosophically for thousands of years across multiple.
Yes, I get that, and you're right, Max.
Let's take the God word out. Let's take the God word out and just call it idealism or a mental universe.
Okay.
Let's call it like a universal mind, since that's where you're going.
Universal mind. That's a good one. Yeah.
I like that term. Go ahead.
Okay. So what we have here is a basically space-time emerging from quantum entanglement, and this is the big thing with This is actually Sean Carroll stuff among a lot of other people's research are going in the same direction right now. They're trying to derive entire space-time geometries from entanglement. And so they start with an entangled system, quantum system, and they say, well, here's the quantum state. We're not even talking about space-time here. How do you derive space-time from that? And so it's very interesting because they're actually having the situation now where they call this Hilbert space. And it's kind of a mathematical space. It's not actually space in the way you space in like in terms of dimensions and so on. But it's a mathematical space that quantum wave functions exist in. But the curious thing is that it actually refers to a real domain of reality. It's a non-spatial domain of reality, but it is a real domain of reality. We know this because it actually correlates real-world quantum entanglement in our world, right? So when you have quantum entanglement and the two particles are linked like that, the reason they affect each other instantly is because even though they appear to be like far apart inside the space-time, underneath the space-time, below the space where it emerges from, they're actually like right close together or directly connected.
So just so I can maybe I can try and break that down on a layman level. Would that basically be saying that our mind and the space and the real reality of space interact with each other without, I guess, how would I put the word? Like almost unconsciously react to each other without us throwing anything into it. Therefore, that would lead to the idea that the universe must be of a mind because it reacts to our mind in a very similar way.
It does in that fashion, but that's not the argument to get to the universal mind.
Yep, I'm just trying to understand here because, like, I'm not a physicist and I have a layman understanding, so I'm trying to put this in a way that maybe like a 13-year-old could understand, if you understand.
Okay, so let's go back to the lithium experiments, right?
Yes.
Your mind is a system of quantum entangled. Your mind is entangled stuff across your brain, right? Entangled positive molecules across your brain. It's in literally the wave function that is determining all. Whether you pick butterscotch or vanilla is that is that entangled system of positive molecules doing that. Superposition space of butterscotch versus vanilla and so on. Now,
so because our minds waffle on like that, and no other way that data does, that leads to what exactly?
Mind is in basically what it means is that the entangled information in your brain is mental. Now, the thing with this is well, then you ask the question, well, there's other entangled systems. Well, aren't they? Are they supposedly not mental? And you say, let's draw a distinction between mental versus non-mental, right? And you have this problem because, well, number one, in theory, this is both in theory, integrated information theory actually predicts that entangled information is mental, as does conscious realism. They're two different theories, and quantum cognition generally just kind of implies this. But the problem is that quantum states have the same kind of behavior. Okay, I mean they're defined by the same equation. There's no difference. There's no one Schrodinger equation for mental states for quantum cognition, and a completely different Schrodinger equation for subatomic particles, right?
Yeah,
it's the exact same. There's no difference, and so then it raises the question: well, we already got the universe as being a big digital construct, essentially, right? Made of entangled information, so it's already immaterial, right? And then you realize, well, the math that describes, and not just the math, but the experiments that seem to be implying that, your mind is quantum. The math that's behind that is no different than the math that's behind the stuff that's causing space-time to emerge.
Okay.
And so then is you change your ontology simply, and you say space-time emerges on the whole from this.
Okay. Because I want to, because I was watching your video, right? And as it goes through, you use, different pop culture references to try and get your idea across. And you use, Fight Club, and I forget what the other movie's called, but how they basically go through a dark side of the universe.
Well, that's Stranger Things. It's not a movie, but it's Stranger Things.
My mistake. The reason why I think it's a Stranger Things is it kind of reminds me of Goonies. Anyway, what specifically is that in reference to in a quantum consciousness? Like, what's that particular theory of all the got to do with your theory in particular?
Okay, well, that's where this thing gets interesting, because remember the first part I said, like, this was not just an argument for God. I mean, yes, it kind of implies that, because it implies this whole mental universe. But I was actually going somewhere else with the video. I had to use the kind of idealist mental universe, cosmic mind thing to lay the groundwork for the frame of the whole thing, right?
Yep.
With that, the first part of this is that locate your mind with respect to the rest of this universe, okay? What it actually is, if you notice your thoughts, if I ask you where the number 2 is, you think something of number 2, right? If I ask you where that is, and say I ask you to think about the number 2, like the concept of number 2, right?
Okay, done.
And then I could be a brain surgeon. I could open your brain up and go looking, and I wouldn't find the number 2 itself. I'd find a bunch of neurons shooting around, right?
Yeah, you might find some going back to my memory of my kindergarten. You might find me thinking in my, like, I don't know, the logical side of my brain that thinks about a math sum. There could be several ways my mind could think of the number 2 that would be read on an MRI, or a contrast MRI, I apologize, that would show that I'm thinking of something. They just can't see the number 2. But they'll go, oh, look at this, it's going to his memory, or it's going to his logical side, or it's going to his hippocampus. Is that kind of what you're getting at? That we can't visualize the number 2 when we look at a brain, but we know he's visualizing the number 2.
Yeah, but also notice that these things they're real. They have an ontology, but they're not like located in space-time.
Yeah, well, because they're ideas.
Ideas. Now, exactly.
Yeah.
They're ideas, and you think, well, that's just kind of commonsensical. It's kind of like whether one not adopts Platonism, there's kind of like a Platonic intuition that people have. There's an idea there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I understand that, but this is where I guess I'm confused. Where's the breakthrough or the surprise? Because I think it's
okay. So here's
can't be measured, and that
outside,
we can't. Go ahead.
Space-time, in the Platonic sense, those are actually outside space-time in the quantum gravity sense as well. It's the same outside space-time. You're actually interacting with outside space-time right now, even as we speak, right?
Yeah, but I understand that.
Here's the twist. If we're inside this big cosmic mind, you don't have access to your subconscious, right? By definition. Well,
no.
If this is the case, the rest of that entire mental universe should be subconscious with respect to you. It's all down there interacting with your subconscious, even though you don't realize it, because it's all inside that inner mental space. You have basically what you have is a universe, a physical reality, and it's emerging from this sort of collective mental inner space, right? But most of it, with respect to you, is subconscious. And so there's all this weird stuff that's causing, trees to appear and planets to appear and space-time metrics to appear and so on and so forth.
But those things, this is where I get confused with your explanation, because a lot of things that you just defined there can be explained by reality and the, I guess, ecosystem or the laws of the universe, for lack of a better word, that can explain why trees grow, why this forms here.
What I'm getting at is that when you would explain it, you would ultimately explain it in terms of biology, and then chemistry, and then ultimately physics, right? And then when you get to physics, you start explaining with quantum mechanics, and you start going way down, you end up with quantum gravity, at which point you get to this emergent space-time stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is the explanation you'd be using would ultimately merge back to what I'm getting to of it's all a big simulation inside of this shared inner space.
Okay, Alchemist, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, you mentioned Hilbert space earlier, right? Yeah, Hilbert space you said it's a mathematical equation, correct?
It's a mathematical span, actually. What it precisely is, if you want mathematics, because it's used in physics in a certain way, in a slightly different way than in mathematics because of kind of accident. You'll see how in a moment. Mathematically, Hilbert space is defined as a span of spaces of all equations which have finite square integrals. So you say, you're familiar with calculus, right? When you do an integral. So you take a function, you square it, and you do the integral, and then if the function turns out to be finite, and a finite number coming out of it, you'd say that that function is in Hilbert space.
And
The reason this is important for physics is because this happens to be the same.
It seems like you're saying here that the more we understand about physics, like the less we know about the nature of reality. Is that kind of what we're getting towards here?
Maybe. Well, what I'm trying to argue for here is that basically it's a mental universe, and there's a layer. So every simulation, right, like a computer game, right? There's the computer game, and then there's the layer below the computer game, right?
Yeah.
The hard drive where the information is happening, right?
Well, the code that makes up the game.
Exactly. What I'm getting is into the world of the code that makes up the game.
Which you would argue is our subconscious mind, but also the subconscious mind of reality. Now, what I don't understand about this is because we know virtually nothing about our own subconscious. So I think it's almost a dangerous leap to connect our subconscious with the, I guess, rules of the universe we don't understand yet. You know what I mean?
First glance. Well, that's the point.
Seems like we're feeling with the God of the Gaps in a new, brand new way.
Because we know. Okay, what I'm getting at is we don't know. Like, let me what the quantum gravity problem is right now. Okay.
Yep.
The gravity problem is such that we don't know the full problem, but we know we have the problem boxed into a corner. We know where the problem lies. We know when you like to do a jigsaw puzzle and you start like doing the corner pieces first.
Yeah.
And then you get the whole outside of the thing done, and then inside you have just the other pieces that have to fit in places.
Yeah.
We've gotten to the point now where we have the corner pieces and all the side pieces. We're trying to we have to build inwards now essentially, but we have the problem.
We do, but because of things like chaos, because of things like chaos theory and stuff like that, we're often we think we understand the frame of nature of reality, but it kind of throws a wrench in the works when things happen that we can't explain, even on a thermodynamics level. And I'm going to use an example here just to help. Right? It is hotter away from the sun than it is on the surface of the sun, and that doesn't seem to make sense thermodynamically. You know?
Oh yeah, because it's that's a kind of an emergent
and
effect. That's like a problem for like classical level physics.
Okay, so what we're getting at here, because this is why I'm fighting you a little bit on this, because and the reason why is I want to understand what rules of nature this theory affects, because if it doesn't affect those rules, what rules specifically would it affect? Like you use the example of me picking the ice cream, but let's use an example that's more predictable in nature, that's outside of our minds, that would make something our minds do.
How would this do something that would make it different? It would be different than just what the previous theories do that build into it.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
well, that's where the rest of this video is going. That's. Remember, I said I had to set the whole thing up. It was not like just an argument for idealism. In fact, that was. If you want an argument for idealism, I have a bunch of other videos in there. But I was using an idealistic framework to show something else of this. So now this is where it gets spooky.
Okay.
Now, remember I said that it's a shared inner mental space, but we don't have access to most of it. With respect to us, most of it's subconscious.
Yeah. And it's poorly used. Sorry, go ahead.
Mentioned Pauli, Wolfgang Pauli.
What was that?
Did you just mention Pauli, Wolfgang Pauli?
No. What I was going to say, was there's a poor example that we use a lot, even though it's a false example. We say we only use 10% of our brains, and that's not technically true. But the subconscious part of our brain we don't use, and I think that's what you're kind of getting at.
Well, this is a collective. So there's part of your subconscious that's in your brain, right?
Yes.
Your brain. But what I'm saying is that is actually connected to that's just the level at your personal level, right? What I'm saying is if you take this idealistic metaphysics in, there's layers of subconscious all the way down and go past your brain that are actually basically simulating the whole reality around you. And it's a joint simulation. It's not just, me doing it or you doing it. It's this larger mind that undergirds all of our minds and is subconscious. Now,
and I've heard a similar theory with that. Sorry, go ahead. I'll stop cutting you off. I apologize.
That's the question: how this makes a difference, right?
Yes.
Okay, now here's where it gets spooky and cool. there's a guy named Carl Jung. He's a psychologist, and he actually studied the subconscious in very great detail. Okay.
Yeah,
His whole
I
life
know all
work.
about him.
Okay, and you're familiar with the term collective unconscious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's an example. Firstly, he saw this happen. He started noticing patterns because he did dream analysis from a lot of people from a lot of different parts of the world. Like they were his patients, and he would just record their dreams, and that's how he did his psychology therapy. Was he'd study their dreams and he'd help them from that, right?
Yep.
Now, he discovered was he was noticing that there were certain themes showing up in their dreams that were all matching. Like someone would say, come from Japan, and everyone is from the United States. They have completely different cultural backgrounds. They've never met each other. And these elements are not even, not where they had television and radio, but they had radio primarily back then, but, not a little bit of television then. Mm-hmm. But they weren't getting it from these. They were getting these weird ideas in from places and same stuff, essentially.
Okay.
Now, a really good example of this, and this is very politically incorrect. You probably saw this in the video, but it's politically incorrect, but it's important to bring up because it's a very stark example of this.
Yep.
There was a dream. He had a disturbed mental patient, and he was part of the asylum he was working at, and he recorded the guy's dream. And the guy had a dream of God's ding dong hanging from the sun and ejaculating on the earth, okay? And this is bringing life to the earth, right?
Okay.
And he passed the story around among the psychologists, his colleagues, and all of this was hilariously funny of how crass this was. Then they discovered there was a couple, 18 months later, maybe it was less than that. It was about a year later, I think. Someone had published a new translation of an ancient Mithraic text that had just been discovered, okay? No one had seen this before, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the ancient Mithraic text, and he was very certain that this, psychology patient had never seen. It was a very obscure thing in some journal, and it hadn't even been published yet. It actually talked about God's wing hanging from the sun and ejaculating and giving life to the earth.
Yeah.
You think about it, well, I mean, that's very specific information, right?
It's an extremely specific dream to have, and then it's very interesting that someone came up of a past, I guess, civilization that had the same, at very least, dream or belief of the same thing. I agree that's interesting, right?
Yeah,
but
this phenomenon...
Go ahead. Finish off, but then I'm going to challenge.
Happens a lot of the time, believe it or not. And he was noticing this, and he... It's kind of funny. There's a... I don't know if you know this. Remember I thought you said the word poly before. Can you keep it down?
Yep.
Sorry, I'm talking to people about
I didn't say the word poly, but let's pretend I did. I did.
Okay. Wolfgang Pauli and Carl Jung were actually friends, and they had this private correspondence going on about this, and Pauli didn't want it, he did publish something on it finally, but for a long time he didn't want to publish it because it sounded like crazy to most people. It's like, I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah.
Right? And they had finally, posthumously, they published 26 years of correspondences, and they're talking about this discovery of these collective unconscious material coming through people's dreams.
Okay.
Now, I'll give you an example in my own case. I've had dreams of this nature before. I'll give you kind of a cool example of this sort of thing happening. I had a dream where I was in London, okay? And I've never, as of last year, I finally went out of this out of the continent once, to Europe.
Yeah.
But before, I've never been to anywhere near London, okay? I've been to Europe, but never to London, okay? So there's no reason for me to have this dream like this. But when I had the dream, I've never been outside North America. However, in the dream, I was near London in like a farm field of sorts, and there were a pair of giants there, okay? They were 14 feet tall. Their names were Gog and Magog, okay?
Okay.
Now, on face value, you would probably assume I got that out of the Book of Revelation and somehow mixed them up with a pair of giants and somehow put them geographically in London for what was over. Okay, right? That's what I thought too, right? I just thought this is a bizarre dream. Then later on, I'm working on my science fiction fantasy novels, and I had this... tried to blur science fiction and fantasy together in a very plausible way, and I didn't know much about fantasy, so I'm going to do research on my fantasy topics. Okay. Now, so I did research into this fantasy material, and one of the things I do research on was giants. In the process, I discovered there is actually folklore in London about a pair of giants that are 14 feet tall, and guess what their names are?
Yeah, the names are the same ones you dreamed of.
Again, Magog. And I'd never
Yeah.
seen that before. Because we didn't have, and I know I didn't see it because we didn't, it was just like, when I had it, like, you know, the internet was very young at the time, we didn't have it yet. I had the dream.
And this is fair, and I get where you're coming from with this, right? And a much simpler example I'm going to use that they talk about with quantum physics is I think of a song in my head, I don't know, Beatles, 8 days a week. And then I turn on the radio and all of a sudden that's the song they're playing, right? And that's part of this argument. But I guess what does this lead to with a greater mind in control? I'm going to ask the question again, because you're right. It is interesting that we have these coincidences that happen in our lives that seem to be our mind creating reality. I agree.
The idea here is that there's like a deeper level of reality in our, like, so for example, the Mithridatic text, right? The mentally disturbed patient and whoever wrote the Mithridatic text some like 1,400 years ago.
Yeah, but the reason why I'm not gonna quite throw it into a thing. I'm gonna do the one that you had, the one with the giants, and then you came across a text that had those. So somehow your mind had a connection with an ancient text that you've never read before. That
actually not with
embodied.
The idea is
ancient old text.
Okay. This is Carl Jung's idea, is that there are these archetypes that are actually down there. Remember I said this is like the layer of the structure, like the programming layer behind reality? There is this programming code that's just down there, okay? And it's just independent of us. The idea is that we both tapped into the same programming code. It's the archetypes. And so I tapped into it, and whoever came up with that folklore story also tapped into it. And so they wrote this folklore story, and meanwhile I had the same dream. I dream about the same thing because somehow we were tapped into, this was subconsciously affecting.
So you're saying, just so I can understand here, you're saying that the dream you had and the story this person wrote in the past, you were connected on another level that's deeper than subconscious and deeper than our realities. Would that be what we're getting at here? Now, my next question with this is, apart from interesting coincidences that happen to us, where I can kind of see where you're coming from here, what do we do with this information? What's next? Let's just accept that this is 100%. We have these things that we can't control, where sometimes our brain connects with a quantum subconscious or reality. What do we do with that information?
This is getting interesting because I'm going to have to go a little bit more explaining to get to this idea. And then after I'm done with that, I'm going to jump into the crazy, because you think this is all crazy up to this point, right?
I'm not saying it's crazy because I'm not saying it's crazy. I'm saying it's interesting. But what I'm trying to get at here, right, is because I can say I've had experiences similar to your Giants one, where I've thought of something and that's happened, and I went, "Oh my God, that's intense." However,
what I'm going to get at is something that is going to. If you think this is intense, when we get, I'm going to explain a little bit more to the conclusion of the video, and then I'm going to go to the article. And when I get to the article, I'm going to show you something that is going to be like 10 times more intense than that. Whoa, I saw this someone perform. Like it's going to blow your mind like completely out the window.
Please do, because I guess what I'm saying is our audience, I understand that there's a lot to unpack here and a lot of information to give before we can get to the punchline, but we need to get there.
But it'll be worth it. It'll be well worth it because it's going to be like a nuclear bomb.
You.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, so there is the idea was, and I start the video out with. Okay, remember I said we skipped the first chapter. We're going to go back to the first chapter now.
Okay.
Lucid dreams. Sometimes you notice that the characters in your dreams, they seem to be, conscious in their own right. Like they did a study on this, and actually I found a guy from the 80s, but I since discovered that there's actually had an article as late as 2016 on the same thing. It's been a thing that's been going on in psychology for a while. little known secret, but it's kind of cool. Apparently, while you dream, especially when you have lucid dreams, your mind seems to actually individuate separate minds temporarily during the dream that have their own internal parts. And the evidence they give for this is that some of these minds are able to do things like math problems, and you ask them to find rhyming words, they will actually find rhyming words for you in the dream. Like you ask a question, they'll find some way to do the task for you, and they come back with stuff that you hadn't thought of before. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with the whole thing with Philemon, he had this character called Philemon in his dreams he would talk to. And he said that he noticed that Philemon was thinking of things that he hadn't thought of before. And he said this is evidence that there's, he realized there's things in his mind that have their own life that they're outside of, his mental life, as it were.
But with this, right, like I'm gonna push a little bit forward with this one before I let you go continue, right? Because I get where you're coming from with dreams can sometimes do these things that are almost seem mythical, but our brain absorbs a lot more information inside of it than we know, and it's possible that our brain, when we dream, is unpacking the stuff.
It could very well be. But the point is that what they're getting at is even if that's happening, what it's doing is that temporarily while you dream, it actually individuates these little minds that are then talking to you in your dream. And it sounds kind of crazy, and then they're getting the information, and even if it's just your brain. So we're going completely, dump the idealism for a second, just go full materialist for a second, okay?
No, just right. Before, because but there are 99 dreams we have where it doesn't work. So that's where I guess I'm pushing you a little bit, is it's limited because it's only fun or cool when it works. And all the other dreams that we have where it doesn't work, it's like, well, what's the point of those dreams?
Yeah, well, it's a frequency thing. I actually have a fair number of dreams of a bizarre name. I mean, likely collective unconscious. I don't know how many of them are until I discover like later on. Oh wow, they actually found out somewhere. It's kind of a probabilistic thing, I guess. It's you have a stochastic number of maybe 50% of your dreams or 30% or something like that have this material in it. And it's kind of adventure going to sleep every night because you never know you're gonna find something.
And then you've also got the fact that there are lots of people out there that don't even remember their dreams. They have no recollection whatsoever.
Actually, by the way, a little trick if you want to remember your dreams. I learned this from a friend. You know how you start like forgetting your dream usually right when you wake up.
Yeah, you write it down as the best.
But what you do is usually you're like in a certain sleeping position, right? You wake up. Put yourself back into the exact same sleeping position, and the dream will likely come back.
Actually, what you're missing the factor here is some people do not even have what is considered dreams because of the factor that they may have disrupted REM sleep, or they go into a different state of meditation where they don't have to achieve REM type sleep in order to achieve the same kind of goal. This is the problem when it comes down to this particular situation that you're trying to get to. Because again, you're actually going to be focusing on a very small budget group of people that go into lucid dreams, and that's very questionable because the average individual has a 50-50, and then we have the sub on either end that have either none or some.
We're able to do lucid dreaming, right?
So
and some people are like better trained at doing it. You can really train yourself to do lucid dreaming.
But that throws a hole in your thing. If you need to train yourself to do something, isn't that like a placebo effect?
Not. I mean, yes, it's giving lucid dreaming, but the whole point of the study was to study lucid dreams, right? So
okay, okay, fair enough. Let's continue. Assuming your premise is real, I want to be giving you the benefit of the doubt here, just to get to your, I guess, your conclusion.
Right, because the conclusion is cool, even if it's, speculative. It's my video, when I get to the blog, I'm going to make it very clear, I am not saying what the blog is saying is correct. If it is saying what it seems to be saying, or what it's saying, then it's batshit insane, okay? It's off the wall insane, but I'm not saying it is, it's saying that it looks like it is.
Okay.
Okay, so it apparently discovered something connected to this that is, shall we say, crazy. Okay, so now let's go back. Let's assume that it's generating these agents, okay? And seem to be research that suggests, and in a way, it shouldn't really be that implausible because we already know people have dissociative identity disorder, and they apparently do this all the time anyway, right? I mean, not all the time, but this is something that happens to people.
Yeah.
Not necessarily dreaming,
Well,
but
and just I've been a carer for people with schizophrenia, and that's in several different people. So I have quite a bit of experience with communicating with people who have dissociative, DID. So I know quite a bit about at least the psychology of people with this and their day-to-day lives and experiences. Just
like multiple personalities coming up, right? So anyway, now here's the thing. Now Kastrup, he's an idealist, and he writes for Scientific American. He had this one article about a couple of years ago about is the universe dissociative identity. He basically he's arguing that we're all alters of the cosmic mind. We are the dissociative, not literally that cosmic mind has dissociative identity, but it's a kind of an analogy or a metaphor saying that in essence we are the dissociated identities of the larger mind, and that's why we're all individual limited things, whereas the cosmic mind is this big large thing that's unlimited. Okay, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what it was getting at, what I realized, if you were to take that and you were to take that research from Paul Foley about the dream agents, put it in that idealist work of that collective subconscious. Well, from our point of view, I mean, the personal and collective is a very distinct thing, right? I mean, there's the brain and then there's not the brain, right? There's a very, very stark distinction. But now look at it from the cosmic mind perspective for a second, right? Well, the cosmic mind is just saying, well, the brain is just another level of programming, right? It's a level of programming inside the Earth program, inside the Milky Way galaxy program, et cetera, right? And it's just, from that perspective, it's very random and arbitrary, It's just another layer of programming.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rogue. Go ahead, Rogue.
No, that's Alchemist. Please, Alchemist, give me a little bit of sanity because I can go into chaos theory, and which destroys that entire thing altogether. So, go for it.
The point is, though, is the idea that there are. If there are minds that are individuating, let me put it this way: let's have two levels. Let's run down into personal and collective unconscious. Okay. And so Foley's saying it individuates at the personal level, and what you this is call it, I don't know, a physics-based Jungian model, I suppose, is basically kind of explaining Carl Jung's collective unconscious theory with physics. It would basically say that there is a collective level as well, and if they're individuating at the personal level, then in theory they should also have minds that are individuating at the collective level. Okay.
Once you finish this point, I'm going to throw Alchemist back in, just so we're clear here. Okay.
Please do.
Yep. Go ahead.
So it should be individuating at the collective level as well, correct?
Yeah. In theory.
Okay. Now, if that's the case, then we have a very curious conclusion because it means there will be other minds that are back there behind space-time that we're not seeing. Okay, they're not part of physical reality. They're just stuck in the programming code, essentially. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they're not individuating as persons. And furthermore, let's say you see one in a dream, right? Say it interacts with the collective unconscious the same way that those giants or God's wing, et cetera, in the Jungian example, those things interact in that same way. But then you die, okay? And your brain cells decay and so on, and you're gone. But the thing with it is because that thing's lower, it's not based in your brain. It's based in this deeper level. It's just still back there. And then it can interact with the next guy's dream, and the next guy's, and maybe it was there before you were even born, and so on. So you have this very curious
Alchemist,
thing.
So sorry, Alchemist, have you got anything to say? Like, I feel like I haven't let you talk enough.
No, that's fine. So what you're getting at essentially is there's this universal mind, because they have some objections, but there's this universal mind, and everything within that mind is a thought, right? It's like a thought of that mind. Okay.
Is that a fair statement?
Other minds.
What's that?
I was adding that some of the minds are other little minds of their own, right? And some of those minds are not our minds, they're minds that are individual at this collective unconscious level. Like, there's our physical reality, there's a cosmic mind, and then in between there's this collective unconscious. And there are these other minds that are not the cosmic mind, the God mind or whatever you will, and they're not our minds, but they're just in between there. And they just exist back there, and they may be interacting with your dreams, and you don't even realize it. And you die, and they may interact with the next person's dreams, and maybe they interact with your great grandfather's dreams, before you were born or something. And it's kind of creepy because there's this notion of you could have these other minds that exist behind space-time that you weren't even aware of that are influencing stuff behind space-time and just stay back there. That's not the full conclusion of the video, okay? Because I got to get to the full conclusion of the video.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Quickly as possible, please, because I'd love to argue the merits of this, and the only way to do that is to get to the full conclusion. So the quicker we can get there, the better.
Get to the conclusion of the video, and then I'll get to the blog, okay? Now, so I'll go crash course you through a binding problem, okay? So I say the word zebra. What comes to mind?
Either a zebra or like a picture of one. Because the only zebra.
Hey, let me ask this. Let me answer this question. What was that? What was that? Something about a zebra?
Yeah. Well, okay. What do you think when someone says think of a zebra?
A zebra? I think of piano.
A zebra, a black and white striped horse, right? I
don't think I think of a black and white striped horse. I think of a zebra.
I think of a piano. I'm sorry. It comes back down to piano. I think piano automatically. I don't think of a horse. I don't think black and white.
Okay.
Well, piano.
In that case, it's something else. The piano is bound to you. So in that case, those two things are bound together instead, right?
Okay.
So think of zebra and you think of piano. So
because the black and white and the horse, if you want to consider it a horse, which is already a horse, it's a different species altogether. But regardless.
See, the piano, you will only think the same word as well. They're just kind of like linked together as a unit.
Are you sure?
You know what I'm talking about, right?
No, because again, you're conflating that everybody's going to follow the basic formula. And unfortunately, it comes back to a chaotic nature. People in general are chaotic in nature. Some follow the basic formula. Others do not.
I get that. But what I'm saying is that in both cases, those are cases of binding. Impressions. Maybe you grew up thinking of piano connected to zebra.
No.
And so because of that, you bound something different to it. So I'm not denying that people have different, What I'm doing is just illustrating, giving you a very simple example of the concept of binding in consciousness. Okay.
Continue.
And a picture, and the two, you can't think of the symbol without the picture. You can't think of the picture without the symbol. Okay?
I could. Either way, I can think of both without having the existence of the other.
Them separately, but a lot of the time, for the times that you do think of them connected,
I don't, because again, it comes back down to you asked me. Hang on. You asked the basic question of wordplay. I automatically played with the word, and you asked the question, when you think zebra, what's the first thing to come to mind? I think piano. It doesn't mean it's connected. It's just the first thing I think of. That's the problem with this so far.
What I was saying is what I'm trying to get at is
I could have thought of penguin.
The first thing you think of, right?
Okay.
The first thing you think of. What I'm saying is that people have mental associations, okay? And I'm just giving you an example of a mental association. I assume that it was generic enough to be universal. Obviously, I'm wrong because chaos theory. But the point is that there is this binding effect, right?
There is a limited binding effect. Again, you're coming down to the conclusion, and again, this is what you're doing. You're concluding that everybody is going to follow that particular binding sequence. Unfortunately, not everybody does. There's only a small percentage of people that do. Like, for example, schizophrenic people. There's only 51 million people worldwide that have schizophrenia. That's a very small population. That's what? When it comes down to the global world, you're looking at maybe 1%, maybe 2% of the world population that follows that particular method. And again, I'm not trying to argue the point. I'm not trying to discredit what you're trying to get here, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. And again, making sure that the audience fully understands, because there's going to be people that are going to be listening to this that are also going to have the same basic questions. So,
right. Well, that's why, obviously, not everyone is lucid dreamers either, and so on. I was in the video. I was trying to pick the particular areas of research that were or specialized. They of course only focus on a few.
Yeah, but when you do this kind of, hang on. When you do this kind of research, you are selecting a certain group of people. You're not going to be getting, people that are going to conflict your ideas. You want something that's going to correspond with it.
Well, what I'm saying is if you're doing research on lucid dreaming patients, you don't go do research on someone who can never have a dream in their life.
You would like to have a few people within that group because it gets you a better, overall spectrum.
If there is a 1% group of people that have you got a control group, okay, that's fine. But what I'm saying is, say you said 1% have DID, right? Or maybe 2%, whatever. Mm-hmm. You're not gonna, if you want to do research on DID, you're not going to go to the other 98%. You're going to go to the 1% because the other 98%. I mean, they don't really. I mean, they may have some indirect connection to it, but the primary focus that you want to study on is, or zoology. There's rare panda bears. Okay, you want to study bears. You want to study panda bears. You're not going to go up to North America and study grizzly bears. There are any grizzly bears in North America. There's no, there's spectacled bears in South America, etc. You're not going to go study those. You're going to go over to China or Nepal and study panda bears, right?
Well, if your main subject is going to be panda bears, then you're going to be kind of focused on only panda bears.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting.
Again, comes back down to your theory is going to focus on the one particular group. So how does this hang on? How does this get down to the final conclusion of, let's say, 98% of the population? Because again, you're only focusing on a very small percentile that actually has the great elusive dreams, or So
you're focusing on a rarefied. You're focusing on something that is a rarefied phenomenon. You're not going to focus on the generic. You're going to focus on the rarefied.
Yeah, but again, after you get down to the rare, you're going to have to try to incorporate it for the mass majority because.
Yeah, exactly, and that's fine. That's totally fine. That's I mean, people. For example, a lot of people have collective unconscious dreams, and they report these things, and they're.
Yeah, but all you have to do is put a subtle. Again, with those collective dreams, they could be easily debunked by just having one person being subtly, kind of probed to go in a different direction, which also.
That would just mean that one person's dream is debunked. Doesn't mean the whole phenomenon is debunked.
It can, because again, you're actually befuddling the entire, program. Because again.
All right, wait a minute. Is the goal here to throw snow on the entire lucid dreaming phenomenon and to say that we cannot draw any rational conclusions from it? Because I'm actually wondering what this nitpicking is getting to.
No.
We're asking the questions. How are we supposed to learn when you're automatically assuming that we're trying to shit all over what you're trying to do here? You brought this person in. We're asking the basic questions. He's answering the questions. If you don't like the way how this is being processed, because again, these might be tough questions to answer or to be asking, then we're not having a proper, conversation here. Because
let me step in for a minute. Let me step in for a minute. Okay, Rogue is asking the difficult questions here because this is I'm being pretty laid back with the things just so we can get to the point. But the fact is, there are things that are so difficult to get over that he needs to express them because he doesn't understand them. And if he doesn't understand them, our audience doesn't understand them. And then we're allowing someone to say the theory without us getting a grasp on it. So some of these questions need to be difficult so we can have a better understanding of what the point is. This isn't trying to be mean.
Might have been getting at is that some of them are a little bit, so we say, tangential, right? Like,
yes.
I mean, yes, if I'm studying, panda bears, I'm not going to be asking questions about grizzly bears or polar bears. So it's like, yes, they're important questions, but they're not really. They're kind of diverting.
Of course not. But if you were doing a theory saying all bears enjoy the cold, and then you went to the polar bears, where I think Rogue is trying to use his point, is that would be an unfair example because those bears are accustomed to the cold. Do you get what I'm saying? Like that's where he's getting upset because he feels like you're using these examples to prove your point when it's like they're broken examples. That doesn't mean it is a broken point. It means that using these ones are unfair because it's not normal, and it's not okay to compare a schizophrenic mind to a regular mind and say that they're connected.
it's what the point is you're trying to draw. You're pointing out there are.
Like,
Okay, well, I brought
Yeah.
schizophrenic minds up. Well, I brought them up twice actually. I brought them up in Castro's concept. I don't even need Castro's thing. I can simply say, I'll go to Paul Foley's research and say, dreams individuate minds. Apparently, right? And the second reason I brought it up was not like to really focus on deity, but rather to simply say there is. Paul Foley's conclusion is really that out there because we already know of another example of this sort of thing happening. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And Paul Foley wasn't the only researcher who's claiming this. There's a number of other. It's a fairly standard thing apparently in depth psychology research where they're saying, I guess your mind absorbs them again when you wake up or something. It kind of absorbs back into your subconscious.
Yeah. And the challenge here is, and this is where the challenge is from the whole thing, is we barely, even the people who spend their whole lives doing this, barely understand the subconscious mind, right? So it's a very, very tough pill to get along, especially when you're I guess suggesting a theory that would be difficult to it's trying to swallow 3 difficult pills at once. And once again, I'm not saying this is your fault. I'm not blaming or saying it's wrong or anything here. I'm saying that this is a very challenging concept to get across.
Dug very deep until this happened. And
yeah.
By the way, it's kind of funny because in the Pauli-Jung correspondences, it turns out that Wolfgang Pauli and Carl Jung were actually trying to use physics to explain the collective unconscious. You see, they have letters together, and they're using Pauli's this is some quantum mechanics thing, and it has connections to your research. And then finally, years later, Pauli kind of got brave enough. He's like, all right, I'm going to co-publish with Jung, and they published this stuff in a scientific journal, and it was bringing everyone crazy with this. Now, so take the concept of binding, and yes, you have to think of piano rather than zebra, but you still have it bound together. So, and not always, but binding is a very general thing. I mean, the whole notion of language kind of depends on it, right? Because you have a name for something, and then you think of that thing, that's how that's how we're able to communicate with each other. Because if I'm talking about zebras, at the zoo, you're not going to think of a piano because you're going to know what the word zebra and zoo mean because you have the correlation in your mind, right? Pretty simple.
Okay.
So now that's just what they call binding. And furthermore, when you look at Hoffman's research, as well as Tononi's research, basically the quantum version of Tononi's research, because Tononi is a materialist himself, but he does also point out there's a quantum mechanical version. Binding is basically just the first-person version of quantum entanglement. So when the idea is then that when you have zebra and black and white striped horse in bird and the horse image, those are simply 2 things that are tangled together in your brain. 2 quantum states that are connected to positive molecules, and then you tangle, and then you say one, and the other one comes to mind instantly because they're a shared quantum state. Now, the same thing happens apparently at a subconscious level as well, and this is actually known about in subliminal advertising. In the video, for example, I think all you guys watch it, but the audience didn't. But or a lot of the audience didn't.
Yeah. You mind if I quickly do this one, because I feel like I can give a very simple way of putting it across that, and I know you. I just give me a shot, right? Okay. And there was an interesting thing done back in the day when Betty Crocker came up with instant cake recipes, and at the start they sold terribly because they were so simple that all you had to do was add water, and that made the house maker in them go, well, I'm not even doing anything. What's the point? So they actually said, hey, put an egg in, and that egg made it so it's I actually feel like I'm doing something now. There is some several I guess metaphors about the egg that would also appeal to females. But basically saying do extra work for this is what made the Betty Crocker instant cake recipe the brand it is now, because women felt bad about not working hard enough to cook the cake. They thought it was too easy with just adding water. Is that a good way?
That was part of it, but the specific ingredient they add, so you could have had say flour or cornstarch, but the reason they added the egg because it's an additional aspect. Remember you said that you kind of touched on it a bit about how the women are specifically focused with the egg.
Yeah, well, they didn't add milk. They didn't add butter. The egg is very specific because women have eggs. It's about birth. Oh, uh-oh.
Exactly. It's subconsciously they think women when they think egg, but they don't consciously think it. And so they don't realize this, and they think, well, I'm giving of myself because I am the egg, metaphorically. And so then so it's a subconscious trick. They link you in with the egg equals woman, but you don't realize that because it's subconscious. And so they say
eggs are almost synonymous with femininity.
Exactly. Yep. And so add your eggs added by you. Remember the commercial at the end? It has your eggs added by you at home, and the connection of you and the egg was very funny. They were doing it on purpose.
And then all the rest was when they're saying these cakes taste better. Almost all of that can be explained by the placebo effect. You think it tastes better because you did it. There is almost no proof that one cake will taste better than the other, other than you believe it.
Not awful, but they don't taste. They're kind of crappy.
Yeah.
Okay. So now the idea then is well, that could be. It's hard to say. Is that coming from the collective unconscious or the personal unconscious? Doesn't really matter. And end of the day, if my model works, it could be either. It's the same effect no matter what, right? But now the interesting thing is what happens when you have a symbol that is connected not with another symbol, but remember I said there are these hypothetical agents floating around that should be there on the model if conscious individuates the way that it seems to be. And if it goes all the way down, then it should be individuating all the way down as well. And so you could, in theory, then have a symbol entangled with an agent instead, right?
Yeah.
And you have this weird situation where you kind of make the agent show up in your consciousness by looking, focusing on the symbol or doing something with the symbol, right? And that was the end of the video. Now, that's kind of creepy because you have this other mind that's not your mind that's now quantum entangled with your mind by looking at the symbol, right?
Go ahead.
Now, this is where it's going to blow everything sky high, okay? Remember Max talked about a book called The Quantum Hermetica at the beginning of the show, briefly?
Yes. Yeah, that's your book.
You know what? A book. But, I was actually going to pass, I think I put it on, I think I saw it, and I put it on, what was it? The Idealism of Science versus Atheism board once.
Yep.
What the blog was getting at was that they're saying that basically the physics model that was in the video is identical to magic. And they show not just the mechanism, but not just the component of it, the notion of connecting a symbol with an agent, but the mechanics of it as well, like the whole notion of space-time coming from a subconscious.
Okay. But, okay, go ahead. I was going to have a question, but I kind of forgot.
Trying to get the blog loaded up. I can't seem to get it loaded up right now. I don't know, some people are having a problem. I saw it and someone shared it to me while I was at work actually the other day, and I looked it up on my phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was having this issue with this where I can't get the post linked up anymore. I can read it at work on my phone. Yeah, it sucks because I don't have Wi-Fi here, so I can't log into my phone from here either. But basically what it was saying was that there are, it basically talked about space-time emerging from a shared inner space. Now, you might have heard, it sometimes shows up good, doesn't always, but you might have seen it in, say, the New Age side of YouTube. Every once in a while they talk about something called as within, so without. Heard of that phrase?
Sorry, repeat that?
There's a phrase that's been passed around some kind of spiritual community or New Age community or what have you. As within, so without, right?
It's esoteric philosophy, yes.
Yeah. It's. I think that's kind of saying.
I don't practice it nor believe it, but go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead. And to be frank, I don't even understand the sentence. If I'm being perfectly honest, I don't understand the point of it.
Referencing something in Hermeticism called the principle of correspondence.
Okay.
And the principle of correspondence says that there are multiple planes of reality. And you have, they call this alternately as above, so below. There's an above plane and a below plane, it's the physical plane. And then they also identify the above plane with the within plane,
Okay.
Which is, remember, inner space is what it's all generated from. And so when you do something in the inner plane, it actually affects something in the outer plane.
Okay, can I just try and cut to the chase here?
Yep.
How does this affect either spirituality or religion? Because I understand that this is a I'm going to use the word pseudoscientific not as an insult, but because it's not fully understood. But how does this reality or the mind's reality go up to the next level, which is spiritual reality?
Well, the idea is that it's already in there in a sense. Remember, that was the notion of the mind is actually where your thoughts were, and they're not located in your brain as such. They're behind.
So the basic, just so I can push that in a more simple, non-scientific language term, our spiritual universe is interwoven with our subconscious universe. Would that be a way to say it? Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, now that's fine. I if that's to be true, my next question with that would be, how influence that, or how does it influence us? What can we get out of that would make it significant?
What I was curious about this is that it showed there was I looked this up. It's called, actually wasn't in the Quantum Hermetica, but it was in the blog. I wasn't able to read the blog fully because I was at work.
Yep. How would you get that blog? It seems it's pretty important.
I tried opening it in Chrome. I tried opening it in like Firefox. It doesn't open no matter what I do. But other people were able to open it, and I was able to open it at work somehow on my phone. I can't open it on the computer. Maybe whoever runs the blog had it down or something like that. I don't know what the deal with it was.
Do we have access to this blog? Because you can send it to
Yeah,
me.
if you have a link to it, man, I don't mind reading it myself. If you can send me a link, that would be perfect.
Are you on Facebook?
I am on Facebook. If you want to get me on Facebook, look up.
Message is in this channel. Okay, send me a message on Facebook. Just add me on Facebook.
Give me a second. I'll do that. I had your Facebook ID here. Bear with me. Max just left bowed out. He's just not feeling it today. But that's so. If you don't mind that, Johan.
I guess so. That's cool.
No. I'm just checking because I hope you don't feeling pressured or anything by me. I'm new to this discussion, and I want to give you the right amount of respect, but I also want to give you the right amount of structure. You know, I don't want to sandbag you, but I also don't want to make it too easy for you. If that makes sense. Okay. All right. I'm sending you a message now. Hey, it's me. Done. You should have got a message on your face.
Oh, I see. Is it? Wait, hold on.
Yeah, David Nemo Williams. I don't mind if you dox me. I've doxed myself a long time ago.
Yeah, he was an Emory advocate for the Melbourne branch. He's in many papers.
Yeah.
CEO at Trade Simple.
Sorry.
CEO. Oh yeah. Okay. You're friends with Max Dean. That's you. You could open it. Awesome.
All right. I will be excited if I can open this thing. All right, I got your thing there. Is spiritual atheism. The YouTube. I'm going through your page to see if I can find the blog there.
You just sent the blog.
You never sent me a message. I haven't got it yet.
David Nemo Williams, right? And you're friends with Matt.
David Nemo Williams. I've confirmed your friend. I got hey, it's me, and that's what I sent to you. I never got a message back from you.
That's weird.
Maybe it's taken a while.
That may be taken. That's bizarre.
Yeah, don't worry. It's.
I'm not seeing. I'm seeing you. I'm seeing your chat, but I'm not seeing your message. The last chat is. I looked in the request side of this is kind of weird. This is from stuff you don't see. Somebody named Boaz Susie. I have no idea who that is. I don't know what the
it says you've got the messages, but you haven't read them yet. I don't know what's going on there.
You're from Melbourne?
Yeah,
yes,
he's
I
from
am.
Melbourne. I just mentioned that.
Melbourne. we're very touchy about that. Melbourne.
You know, Melbourne, Melby. It's fine. Yeah, that's where he's from.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna dismiss.
As long as you don't say Melbourne.
Well, I mean,
are we live?
For all we know.
I got it.
There you go.
Awesome. Can you open it?
Yeah, I'm opening it now on my phone. New documentary explains black magic with physics, and the signs are literally everywhere. All right. You want me just to read this thing out?
Yes, so yeah.
All right. This article and video is quite interesting. I posted here so you can begin to see the dangers that lay in wait around us. I believe it is time that we begin to take heed and beware. We really do need to be donning the full armor of God daily. And then you have a Bible verse here, I believe.
Not my book. I don't know. It's whoever wrote the thing.
Okay. Oh, so sorry. I apologize. There is a Bible verse here that was in your blog. Ephesians 6:10-20. Finally, be strong in the Lord and the strength of His might. Put on the full armor of God, so that we will be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against forces of this darkness, against spiritual forces of wickedness, heavenly places. Therefore, take up full armor of God, so that you will be able to resist in the evil day, and having done everything to stand firm. Stand firm, therefore, have your lions of the truth, and have put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. In addition, all taking up the shield of faith, which you will be able to extinguish the flaming arrows of the evil one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. It's nearly over, I apologize. With all prayer, petition, pray at all times, in spirit with this as a view, be on the alert and perseverance of petition for all the saints, and pray on behalf of the utterance may be given in me in the opening of my mouth. I am the ambassador of chains, proclaiming my body. Okay, so that verse is that what?
No, that just scroll down. I saw that. I skimmed the article when I was at work.
I'm sorry. Okay, you got to help me out here. What heading should I read from?
Because I don't have access to it, unfortunately. I saw
okay, because there's a lot of words here,
yeah.
and this is distinctly different from what we're talking about.
Okay, I don't know. I didn't read the Bible verses too much at the beginning.
Okay, I apologize. I'm only reading what's in front of me. You know what I mean? I'm only because the rest is the rest. There is a lot of Okay, it mentions your book here. So let me just try and start from here. So-called lesser magic, because we've been talking a while here, and you even brought up magic or God once. You brought up, spiritualism, which I can.
Well, what I'm saying is that according to this blog, there is a connection between basically the physics in the video and magic. Apparently, if what the blog is saying is, to be
okay.
So
now magic as in no. Here's an interesting thing, because we can go a little bit. We can go with basic level of this with quote unquote magic with something as simple as a book called The Secret.
Well, I was gonna go like
right?
I don't know, the Chambers of Secret or the what was it, the Ghastly Hallows or something like that, Harry Potter kind of stuff, magic. Are we kind of going in that direction, or just
no? It seems like let me see here. Mm-hmm. It seems we're going in the direction of more magical, like the book The Secret, where you think about something and you ponder it, and that leads towards actions that would take to get the thing you desire. For example, I wish I had a wife. I wish I had a wife, and you think about it, and then the universe and yourself take action that would lead to you getting a wife, right? Is that the magic they're talking about here, or are we talking about ritualistic magic?
I think the idea with it is actually more ritualistic magic.
Okay, now we're having a hard time here, because ritualistic magic is a whole new thing upon thinking about something and taking action to get it. This is something changes the forces of nature for your benefit based on, I guess, like a part of my crassness here, cheat codes.
Yeah, there's been some studies on the trying to create ritual magic, and it doesn't kind of work out. It's based off of individual belief systems, which some, if not a good portion of people don't have. So it comes back down to what area of belief are we talking about here? Muslim, Judaism, Christianity, or Catholic Christianity,
Well, for
or the
example,
lack of.
I live with someone who's a green witch, right? And she does believe that she takes certain, like she uses certain plants and rocks and other things, that her luck and her like aura, for lack of a better word, or things in her life will be better if she takes those actions.
And,
Now, it could be very possible that because she's having a positive mindset when she takes on these things, that alone is enough to make the outcome better.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily the rocks or the belief or the whatever that's magic. It's the mindset of entering that task because she did all that. That is quote unquote magic. You get what I'm saying?
A placebo.
yes.
Exactly. But it's a very complicated placebo. You know, it's way more difficult than just I gave you this pill and it's going to work.
Are we still live?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. I have a question, if that's okay.
Go. No, dude. You don't need to ask permission. You can jump in whenever you want. Okay?
Let's get this party started.
So basically,
okay.
the crossfire rules apply now. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah. So if we're all, as you put it, these we're branches, if you will, of this sort of universal mind, how is it that we retain individuality?
That's the idea. It's a dissociated alter. Now, if you wanted to put it, say, in terms
Does
of
universal mind have like dissociative identity disorder?
that's it's someone would, I think, criticize it in that sense. It was kind of a metaphor. You want to get super specific with it, right?
Sure.
So let's go to Tononi's model of consciousness, and he calls it integrated information theory. And you have a certain set of information in your mind. There's a lot of information there, and it's in yours, not mine, right? But vice versa. And whether when Dave Nemo's and whether when TC Rogues and whether when Max. Basically, what it is there are separate systems of information, okay? And Tononi equated that with entanglement. So everything is entangled together. That is a single, everything, all the information in one entangled system is equivalent to a mind, the analog of his, or the quantum version of his model. So actually, now, with that, if you look at, this actually shows up in several interpretations of quantum mechanics, the relational structure, I should say, because people often say relational quantum mechanics, and that's a little more specific, but it actually shows up, Wigner's friend as well. It's many minds as well. It's a feature of quantum mechanics has to be kind of explained, right? So that is basically some sort of Wigner's friend thought experiment. You have the cat in the box. The cat is entangled with the radioactive isotope, but Wigner's friend who's doing the experiment,
You mean Schrodinger's cat?
Yeah, Schrodinger's cat. But then Wigner, went out to lunch and he locked the lab door with his assistant inside. And now when he goes there, he doesn't open the lab door up yet. From his perspective, the cat and the researcher and the radioactive isotope, they're all in superposition together. So there's a happy researcher with a live cat and a dead cat with a sad researcher. They're both in superposition together, even though from the researcher's frame, it's either a dead cat or a live cat right off the bat.
You're also forgetting.
And
So if you have another person who's outside that room, when we have the researcher with the happy or alive cat, you also are forgetting that you also have a dead or alive researcher with a happy, alive, or dead cat.
Yeah, that's because maybe the cat survived and maybe there was a freak gas leak that knocked out the researcher and killed researcher too. That could happen, or meteor rammed through the ceiling. Laser point, Yeah. Okay. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the point is that they're all in superposition together, except that in the researcher's frame he's not, and the cat is. And then likewise, maybe there's someone outside the building. Maybe Wigner, his friend, and the cat all died together in a freak explosion in the next lab over. And the guy outside doesn't know because there are soundproof walls and he hasn't walked into the physics building yet. So the point is that collapse is relative to frame, and of course, when you have collapse, prior to collapse, you have superposition, and when you have two or more particles in superposition together, that's what the definition of quantum entanglement is. So Wigner and cat are in a single entangled system, and likewise Widner and his friend and the cat are in another entangled system, and so on and so forth, the farther you go. And if you create all these entangled systems with consciousness, what that means is, if you have a lot of entangled systems running around, there are lots of conscious systems there. But then the farther out you go, the more of it entangles into, outside the building, everything inside the building is now entangled with his friend and the cat. And so the idea is that at some level, when you go way far out to the universal mind, the entire universe is entangled.
Yeah, but you also have to.
It's a matter of reference frame, is what it is.
I get that, but you're also trying to say that in this case that instead of having each individual person outside of that particular realm, you're trying to say that they're all entangled with the whole idea whether the cat is alive or dead. Because realistically, no one really cares when you get further out to that spectrum whether the cat's alive or dead.
You don't care. Right? We're giving the hype because when you ask the question of the cosmic mind being dissociated, having these different identities and so on, I'm trying to explain exactly the physics of how you would go from the single cosmic mind to all its little minds.
Okay.
It literally is just a
It's
matter
all
of
based on a particular interpretation of quantum mechanics, correct?
It's not one interpretation; it's multiple. Notice that I said the relational nature of quantum mechanics. It's ubiquitous to a wide variety of interpretations. Like actually, not just ubiquitous. It's not just two interpretations. They actually demonstrated this relational nature of mechanics last year. Actually, a version of Widner's friend in the laboratory.
Okay.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as interesting as this conversation is, we're going to have to unfortunately cut it short just a little bit, as we are running very long in the real time on the Twitch side. So if you are here listening to us in the audio version, or even on the YouTube page edition, or maybe even the BitChute version of this beautiful rendition, this will indicate that we did some heavy editing to get to this point. Again, if you haven't already, please head over to the gnfnetwork.com. That's gnfnetwork.com for all of our GNF Gator and Frog related material, whether it be TRPC, the Red Pill Compendium, Inquisition of a Dracon, patch notes, or even Welcome to Niteburn. We also do a hosting on Twitch side, and again live on Fridays, the Rogues Classic Cinema. We also do a few other minor things over the weekend, if I remember to put them on. And now for a traffic report. Today's show is sponsored by the Department of Dangerous Fauna Management from Australia. Look up, stay alive. Drop bears are a very real danger to all Australians. Almost 1 in 10 Australians have been attacked by a drop bear. And the rate is even higher for foreign visitors. Don't become another statistic. Always be aware of low branches and door frames. And remember, look up, stay alive. Brought to you by the Department of Dangerous Fauna Management, Australia.